Channel 9 Land. We're back again with Season 3, Episode 6 in Talkin' Baseball, the show in which we talk about baseball.
Who knew?
I'm Pete Lincoln.
I'm Jason Smith, Season 3, Episode 6. Can't believe we're this far. And welcome. And we're going to talk today. Right now as we speak, it's a beautiful Labor Day weekend. And so we're going to talk about the stretch run, because this is the stretch run of the baseball season. Every Labor Day is sort of the final lap of the baseball season, so to speak, and you find out really quick who's in the race and who isn't. And so we'll talk about how this season has shaken out so far, which in some ways it's been expected, and in some ways it hasn't.
That's right. In the old days, there'll be a doubleheader today, or this weekend.
Right.
There was always 3 holidays: Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and there was national baseball holiday, so to speak, which it doesn't seem to be anymore.
No, some teams actually have tomorrow off, or Monday off, I think, with Labor Day, which is very strange.
And actually badly for the institution or the business of baseball. This year has not worked out well for the stretch run.
No, there's not a lot of excitement this year for the most part.
Ordinarily, there's pennant races, wild card races, but just the way some teams have worked out this year, especially the Dodgers, the Nationals, and the Astros,
yeah,
really wrapped up their divisions by the 4th of July.
In June, they were pretty much all set in June.
So those 3 divisions are cut and dry.
Pretty well done.
And unless the Cubs and the Red Sox pull a chicken and beer deal,
completely collapse.
Yeah. It's likely they'll win as well.
And Cleveland is starting to pull away too. They're in the midst of an 8-game win streak right now, which we thought they would all year. Finally get hot and kind of pull away from the rest of that division, which they're doing. So at this point, unless, like we said, unless the Cubs fall on their face and the Brewers catch fire, there really isn't a lot of excitement in the division races, nor is there in the wild card for the National League. Again, unless
Arizona has definitely cinched one. Yeah. Colorado was doing pretty well. I think Milwaukee's the only
Milwaukee's really the only team that's hanging in there against those two. So unless the Brewers catch fire, the National League is pretty much done.
This is
pretty much set.
And all the lineups, the matchups will be all set too, a month ahead of time. And that's not good, because the competition right now is coming from football.
Right.
The Patriots are playing Thursday. Next week from Sunday, from our taping here, is the first full week of baseball. So it'll be 4 weeks of intense interest in football before the baseball players come and national interest shifts away.
Sure.
Really, the only race of any real
consequence
is the American League wild card.
Wild card is pretty crazy at this point, but which is what the idea of the second wild card was to keep a lot of teams in contention until the end to try to make it exciting. But it just hasn't happened this year the way things have gone. The Yankees have the first wild card lead, and I think they're 3 or 4 games ahead of everyone else.
Oh no, that's dropped down to a game and a half.
A game and a half from the Twins. From the Twins, that's right.
The Orioles.
And the Angels.
Yeah, and the Angels. There's 4 teams, all within 2 or 3 games of each other.
So
the Yankees are hanging on by their teeth right now.
So that's up for grabs. But that's really the only thing that is really sort of up for debate right now. And like you said, even a lot of the seeding, like the National League, the Dodgers are going to be the top. They were on a record win pace for a while, and they kind of slowed down the last week or two. But it's going to be Dodgers 1, Nationals 2, and probably the Cubs 3. And so what are you playing for at this point?
Another thing, there's no individuals that are having sensational seasons that capture the nation's attention.
Other than Stanton, but he's in Miami, which is sort of a nadir of baseball coverage right there.
I mean, Aaron Judge had a first half that was miraculous, but 2 pages in Time magazine about him a few weeks ago, and since the All-Star game, he's been hitting 182 and has lost the lead in home runs. So there's nobody that down the stretch. There's no Maris Mantle thing going on.
No, you're right. Gallo caught Judge yesterday for the home run lead, and he's probably going to pass
him. I think Altuve is the only one hitting over 320.
He's about 40 points ahead of everybody else.
So the batting title there is squared away too. And so there's no particular points that are capturing everybody's attention down the stretch, and that's too bad.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
It hurts baseball overall.
Right. I think if Stanton had been on a different team, maybe there'd be a little bit of different coverage. But like I said, he's in Miami, and nobody really cares about Miami when it comes to baseball. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing that there's no real record set or any individual accomplishments really happening right now. So you're right, and let's not be mistaken. This country is a football country.
Right.
Football is the A1 sport. So for people to be interested in baseball in September, there has to be something out of the ordinary that's going to make people watch. Now, where we are in Boston, it's a Red Sox. I mean, it's Patriots too, but the Red Sox have a huge following no matter how they're doing. But you go to some place, say like Milwaukee or Cincinnati or something like that, or, well, Tampa Bay really doesn't draw people at all, but a lot of it is dependent on how well the team is doing and how well individuals are doing. So when there's nothing to watch, say like Cincinnati, who's having a terrible year, you're not going to get fans in September. They're going to go watch the Bengals instead.
Or moreover, what's happened to Detroit.
Sure.
Detroit has just decided to sell off all their stars. Verlander was just traded to Houston. Upton was just released. So why go to a game in Detroit, which used to be tremendously valuable as a franchise?
Oh, sure, yeah. They released Frankie Rodriguez. They got rid of all their name players just because they decided, hey, we're going to rebuild. And they didn't even wait for the season to end. They just, they just said, forget it, we're done.
So that's sad. Another thing that's happened with Boston this year is their amazing lack of power.
Oh, man.
They've always been known as a good hitting team, and way up there in home runs. Poppy's was always guaranteed 35, 40 home runs, and this year, for much of the season, they've been tagging along.
Not this year. Not
so
this year.
This leads us into our trivia.
Oh
question.
yeah, this is pretty hard to believe. This trivia question.
Here's our trivia question for this week.
So in 1992. If any of you remember that Red Sox season, it was a pretty bad one. That was the Butch Hobson era. The team leader for the Red Sox had 15 home runs. Who was the team leader in home runs that year in 1992 with 15?
It's the least home runs any Red Sox leader has had since World War II. So in the last 70 years, it was the lowest total. The team that year totally had 84.
Those were some dark years, those Hobson years.
It was the last year that Wade Boggs played for the Sox. He only hit 258, and it was just to have to stagger through. We were the Detroit of that.
We were, and what was funny is that there were some stuff. Remember, after '86, they sort of dismantled the team, and they had all these young kids coming up like, Ellis Burks and all these other guys who were supposed to come up and be superstars, and most of them never quite gelled. And the 92 was sort of the fallout of that era where, okay, these kids weren't quite what we thought they were. The Todd Benzingers of the era and things like that. And so those were some really pretty awful years, those Hobson years, because they had no superstars except for Boggs, who had a terrible year.
It was traded after that.
And that was his final year. Yep. And the kids hadn't panned out. And other than Clemens, there was no pitching whatsoever either. It was pretty bad. So.
Well, within 3 years, they had Vaughn era, 95. Yep. They were able to
won a division in 95 under Kevin Kennedy once Hobson was done. But if you remember that season from 25 years ago, that's your trivia question for today.
And pretty much from 95 on, they've had decent seasons.
They've been competitive for the most part.
That's right. Sure. Well, what we thought we'd do for the bulk of this show is to try to do an evaluation of the Sox as far as who has performed beyond expectations and who has fallen far below.
Sort of the 10th player award that they used to give back in the TV 38 days, if you remember those.
The fans could all vote, that's right. So we decided, without telling each other, who we would pick for the most surprising performance as a hitter, least as a hitter, and most surprising as a pitcher, and least too.
Yeah. If there's any doubt that this is improvised, this is right here. Right. We have not conferred on these at all.
And so, as we're talking, see if you would either agree with us or perhaps come up with some choices of your own, because there's a lot of players here that have had workable seasons, but only certain ones that seem to have stuck out. Sure. So I'll give you first choice. Who's been your best surprise as a batter?
My biggest surprise as a batter, my first one that I said was Andrew Benintendi. He came along. This is his rookie season. We didn't know what he was going to be heading into this year. I mean, he was hot at the end of last year, but you never know. How many rookies have come up for a couple months, been great, and then they hit a wall? Well, Benintendi's proven that he's the real deal. He started strong. He had a little struggle in June or so, and then he picked it right back up, and he's been one of the most consistent hitters. He's been healthy all year. He's had great power. He's killed the Yankees. He has a perfect swing for Yankee Stadium. That left-handed, dead red fastball hitter with that short porch, which is always of great value. And he seems like he's very level-headed. He doesn't get frustrated. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. And he's really sort of, and like any rookie, they tested him with fastballs early. When he went into his slump, they started throwing him breaking stuff, off-speed stuff, and he's caught up to it. He's figured it out.
He might get high after the games. But
yeah, right, yeah, that's true. He does have a little bit of a Jeffrey Lebowski dude look to him.
He's only 23, really.
Yes. So I think he'd be my pick for the person who's exceeded expectations. And don't forget, people have been hurt a lot of the year. Pedroia, Holt, he's hit at the top of the lineup, which is where they really needed people.
Right.
And so I think for me, he's the hitter that has really gone above and beyond what you thought you would expect out of somebody.
That's right. He played a little enough last year to still be considered a rookie.
Yeah.
And he's a rookie.
And
other than the fact that Aaron Judge had a tremendous first half, he'd certainly be in the running for rookie.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it'll be Judge, but Benintendi might be number 2 right behind him.
He has a great arm. He plays a great outfield. He's stolen 19 bases.
Yeah.
And he seems to play with a calm that some rookies don't have. Right now, the third baseman doesn't seem to have the calm that he had for a while. It was
Devers, yes.
But he just, all year long, seems to be able to take every day as a new day. And he's hitting about 280. Which in this day and age
is good. And he's going to be a 20-20 guy, which for a rookie is astounding.
And he's not going to reach the 100 plateau in strikeouts, which is almost amazing these days.
And he's a good dancer. When they show the outfield dancing after a win, he's a great. He does the Michael Jackson moonwalk and everything. Yeah, he's a great dancer too. So throw that in.
Okay, I have no problem. Good pick. Good pick. My pick is Christian Vasquez. We've talked so much in this show about catches that aren't really expected to do much hitting, but have to work on the fielding and handling the pitches, such as Gary Sanchez. Yes. Can't do that at all.
Right.
And he was always good at that. He has a great arm, but he's hitting 295 this year. Yes. He's had some clutch hits down the stretch. He seems to be someone who is also doesn't strike out a lot. I'm amazed that he has come along the way he has.
And at the beginning of the year, they weren't even sure that he was going to make the team.
Right.
Leon was the main guy, and it sort of turned into a 50-50 split. Leon is sales guy, obviously, but the other games are pretty even with how they've shaken out, and especially with Leon kind of banged up right now. Vasquez has gotten more and more playing time, and the more he plays, the better he hits.
And I think Leon hit over his head last year.
Absolutely.
A great part of the
season. Yeah.
And so not that Leon has done badly, he's in the 240s or something, but Vasquez has really picked it up to the point where I think down the line you might expect him to see a 300 hitter, which for a catcher is a huge asset.
And especially when you consider his age, there are so many catchers that blossom late with hitting. Because as you said, they're supposed to concentrate on defense and catching the pitchers first. So a lot of the catchers don't really blossom as hitters till they're like 30 or even later. He's in his 20s and he's doing this, so it's a good sign.
Good.
Great sign.
Okay, I'll lead off with disappointments.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good.
This probably isn't fair to him, but to me the biggest disappointment of this team has been Brock Holt. He's been hurt with his concussions, but he was the one that was expected to play the role that Nunez has been playing. He has 18 hits on the season. He's hitting 175. Only 100 at-bats, but he's been a non-factor the entire season. He's back now, but
playing hurt.
He has no homers, 4 RBIs. He essentially has been a non-factor the whole season. And when you expect that he is going to be the 10th player award.
Sure, yeah. That's his job, is when they acquired Nunez, that's what Holt was. The utility guy, play the infield, play the outfield, play anywhere, hit him anywhere in the lineup, and he'd be a tough out. And yeah, you're right.
I suppose the only way to look at it is if he had done well, they wouldn't have picked up Nunez.
Sure. And Nunez has done very well since they picked him up. So my hitting disappointment, you can't really get much more disappointing than this. I had to go with Pablo Sandoval. I'm sorry. I mean, the expectation was at least that he could play as a major league player. He couldn't even play. He couldn't play third. He couldn't hit. And for a contract like that, for you just to be released, I mean, out and out released.
The 2.5 seasons.
2.5 seasons to go. That's astounding. And what that did is third base turned kind of into the Spinal Tap drummer part of the infield. Every week there was somebody new because Sandoval was not hitting or hurt or down in the minors or whatever. And that to me is a huge disappointment. I mean, even if he hit 250 with some doubles power, some passable defense, that would have been okay. And they just got zero out of him. And that to me, I don't know how much more disappointing you can get than just not even making the team.
That rivals the worst purchase they've had.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's the worst signing they've ever done.
He had a phenomenal World Series right at the perfect time for him.
Yep.
Right when the free agency was coming up.
Yep. And there were no other good third basemen in that free agent class, which he got lucky with that too.
But you figure the money he's picked up and what he's produced with this team, and the various kind of ailments he's had other than being a big balloon. But the one I thought was the best one, he went down with an ear infection.
Yeah.
So many booze got stuck in his ear.
Yeah, I know.
And he had to have surgery.
That's all that means. Yeah, that was just a horrendous signing, and I mean that was one. Even when the signing happened, there were a lot of naysayers who were just proven right this season by just how bad a signing that was. That was terrible.
It just seems to me that if you're a professional player making $1 million, you can at least make the effort to stay in shape.
Yeah, right.
And he was just out of shape. And being heavy also leads to more injuries too.
Sure.
So that that was.
Look at Prince Fielder.
That's right.
You know, I mean,
just go. And maybe while you're very young, you can carry it off.
Sure. Once you hit 30 or so,
right.
it's all that extra work and extra weight, and your body just can't handle it anymore. There aren't a lot of big guys who play well into their 30s.
And my favorite line is after you get. Actually, the Giants picked him up.
They did.
They did. I haven't checked, but I know he did hit one home run.
Yeah, he did.
But his comment was, "I never felt comfortable in Boston."
Really? Why? He got the and the
it was embarrassing to cash his checks.
It was. And we kept giving him chance after chance after chance, and he just never came through. That was just a brutal signing. So that's my biggest disappointment for the year. That to me is cut above everyone else.
That's right. Okay. Okay, I'll give you. I'll take the first shot in pitches.
Sure.
And I'm going to skip the obvious Sale.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I did too.
Sale has been.
I did too.
Been terrific, in every possible sense of the word. Not just the strikeouts. That's the kind of thing that draws national attention. This guy strikes out a lot.
He strikes out a ton of people.
So, oh boy. But it's more his demeanor. The way he's handled himself as a teammate with a new team, his total frankness anytime he doesn't do well.
Oh yeah, he
always takes the blame.
So today I didn't pitch well. What do you want me to do?
He is everyone's pick is the best choice. To me, the one that is the biggest surprise, positive surprise, is Pomerantz.
You took mine. You took mine.
He, in some ways, other than I understand today, he just got hammered.
Yeah.
He has been, when I straight in a row, he's got a 14-4 record. He's fifth in the league in ERA. And there was no reason to expect that. When they picked him up from San Diego last year, he was mediocre at best.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to handle a lot of the adjustments that he had to make.
Yeah.
But he had been an all-star with San Diego, and he's also not that old a guy.
Yeah. Well, he came up and he struggled with Colorado. Well, who doesn't? And then he pitched well in San Diego. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
So we really didn't know what kind of read to get on this guy when he came over to the AL East, which is always the heaviest hitting division in the majors.
So. He also has been able to go pretty late later than you expected. More games into the 6th, 7th inning, which is crucial on a team that has not great third, fourth, and fifth starters.
Right.
He's emerged as the second starter on the team.
Yeah, he really has. He's been the second best all
most
year.
wins in the majors, fifth best ERA.
Yep. Out of somebody who actually at the beginning of the year they were saying they might end up putting him in the bullpen.
That's right.
So that's how far he's come.
So that was, I think, my personally biggest surprise of the entire season so far.
Well, you stole my thunder on that one. So I'm going to go to my second tier one, and it's sort of might be a little bit of a surprise, but I don't think anybody thought that Craig Kimbrell would do what he was going to do this year.
That was my second
He really wasn't. I mean, he had some great years in the National League, some record-setting years when he was with the Braves and the Padres, but last year he was hurt. He hurt his knee, and he was off last year, and you could tell. You know, he gave up a couple key hits in key situations. He blew a couple big saves last year, and I don't think anyone really knew what to expect out of him this year. And he has been money this year. He's been ridiculous. He's fourth on the team in strikeouts as a reliever. He has 105 strikeouts. And his K ratio is like 16 per 9 innings or some absurd number like that.
He struck out 50% of the batters.
That's insane.
The next closest of anyone is 40%.
Yeah, that's ridiculous the year he's had. And they need, especially because a lot of the guys in front of him have struggled at certain times this year, having that lockdown guy has just been so crucial. I mean, he had a couple bad games here and there, but for the most part, he has just been absolutely lights out, and people look sick against him. When he has the 99-mile-an-hour fastball that's here, and then he drops the breaking ball down here, he's unhittable. You can't hit him.
And once that mindset gets established with other teams, they come in expecting
to strike out.
Just like when Rivera would come in.
Right, yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah, half the battle was mental at
We're
that
not
point.
going to hit this guy.
Right.
And some of the swings against him, especially recently, have been
awful.
awful. Looked like Carbo's next to the last swing.
Yeah, right. Or Dave Henderson's next to the last swing.
Just these terrible swings because they're just so overmatched that he can throw a curve that well and then 100-mile.
And it's up here, too, so you can't catch up to it. It's
the same pitch that Clemens used to have, that rising ball, and you can't catch up. If you do, you pop it up.
Right.
You know?
Yep. And, if you do make contact at all. So he's been my, I wouldn't say a, quote, surprise, but he's exceeded expectations, I think, just as much as, almost as much as Pomeranz has this season. So
completely healthy all season.
Yeah, and that's huge.
And I think they managed him well. They've never gone more than 3 innings with him. They stopped that, for the most part, bringing him in the 8th.
Yeah, unless it was an absolute emergency, they wouldn't bring him in the 8th inning. Yeah, and especially, like I said, a lot of the guys in front of him have struggled at various parts this year. So so having him was absolutely crucial.
I just like the whole, I don't know what you call it, Triceratops pose.
Oh,
it's so unique.
The bird.
And I know, when you hear other announcers making fun of him, they do that because they're afraid
They're
of him.
afraid of him. They don't, absolutely.
It's just
absolutely.
like, you say Yankees suck because they don't suck.
Right.
Everybody knows that. Nobody ever goes around saying that the
Tampa Bay Rays suck, because they do for the most
St.
part.
Louis Browns used to suck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yankees suck because they don't.
Because they don't. I've had discussions with that friends before. They think it's mean. It's not mean.
It's not mean. It's
actually a compliment.
It's a compliment
To say that. And when he comes in and stands there in that bird pose, looking in, with his pink red face and his red beard.
Yeah. But you're right, it's like Rivera. Half of it is mental. He comes in and you just know that you're not going to have a chance against him if he's on. So I think it's funny, we agreed on the pitchers, I guess.
That's right. Okay, so go ahead with your, since I picked you before, why don't you take the pitcher that's disappointed you the most?
Well, it's hard not to pick this person, and again, like you said with Brock Holt, perhaps it's not fair because of injuries and things like that. I have to think Price has been the biggest disappointment with that big contract. And it's not just that he's hurt. If it was just injuries, I think we'd be a little more forgiving. He's just had a real sour attitude, a sort of a bad cloud hanging around him all season with some of the comments that he's made. He's seemed disinterested at some points this year, I think. In terms of just how the team is doing. And, if you're hurt, you're hurt. That's fine. We can forgive that. But to come back and then be hurt again and come back and be hurt again, and you're never really straightforward with what the problem is, I think that's the biggest disappointment to me, is if it was a straight injury, fine.
And you say he's hurt, but What exactly is wrong?
Well, that's what I mean.
What's hurt?
He hasn't been straightforward with what.
It isn't like he has a torn this or a sprain this.
Right.
It says it's arm soreness.
Arm soreness.
Discomfort.
Right.
Well, I'm discomfort.
Yeah. I'm over 40. I'm starting to get discomfortable every day. I mean, that's kind of goes with the crowd.
Too bad. He's won 5 games this year. He makes $30 million a year. That's $6 million a save. I mean,
a win.
And $6 million a win. Now you can't. That isn't really fair, but still, it is fair.
It is because you're getting paid that money.
You would expect to get more from your starter than that.
And he had the only one I remember. He had one really good game against the Yankees, and other than that, they've just been nondescript the times he has gone out there. So
and there doesn't seem to be any timetable for his return.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing. Even if you could kind of rehab him back and okay, he's available for an inning or two. Fine, you can use him in the bullpen in the playoffs. There's no indication that he is going to be ready for postseason.
Are they going to have confidence in him? Say he says September 28th. I'm feeling great. Are they going to start him in a playoff game?
Would you put him in place of Pomeranz? I wouldn't.
I mean, seriously. Would you start him?
Would you start him in place of Erod? I wouldn't.
Especially with his playoff history.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and until he has a good playoff series, that's going to be a knock on him. And he has to come out and prove that he can pitch in the postseason. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year.
The thing that bothers me about him, he can opt out of his contract after next year.
Sure.
Now, the whole idea of setting up an opt out of a contract is that if you were doing really well, you can opt out and get a better
playoff. Yeah.
Now, he's getting $30 million a year. Who is going to pick up that contract?
Nobody. Especially with that history. If you put together 3 years like Sale has, okay, maybe somebody will break the bank for you. But one mediocre year last year, an injury-riddled second year. Who knows what's going to happen next year? Who's going to pay $30 million for that? Nobody's going to pay that kind of money. So he's either stuck here making that money, or he's going to have to take a pay cut to go somewhere else.
Yeah, for 5 more years.
Oh,
yikes.
Yeah, yikes. So based on this year, and I do think he maybe got unfairly criticized last year. I think last year he had a better season than the numbers really showed. He had a couple really bad starts that sort of blew his numbers out of proportion last year. But this year he deserves all the criticism that he's getting.
Yeah. Well, my pick, I don't think will be agreed on by a lot of our viewers out there, but the person that's the most disappointing is Eduardo Rodriguez.
Interesting.
He seems to have gone, he had a great rookie year, and last year he was downhill. This year he's got 4 wins, 5 losses, a lot of injuries, and he's another one that seems on the mound to not evidence body confidence.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
I hate it when he starts. They talk about he's got this great stuff. He gets, in some games, has a lot of strikeouts. He doesn't go deep. And he seems to be willy-nilly as far as one start to the next all the way through.
Yeah, he has one awful inning every start. Every start he has one horrible inning where he just can't get it together.
So what's up for him down the line? He isn't showing any kind of improvement, any kind of going up the ladder in his career. And 4 and 5 for a guy he has missed some turns.
Sure,
he's had 20 starts now. Isn't what you can build on. I would think he'd be better off in the National League myself.
He could, yeah, possibly.
If you're going to do any kind of actual trades instead of just pulling up free agents, he'd be someone I'd be willing to give up.
Yeah. So that's a surprise pick, but I can see where you're coming from in that. Sure.
They've been trying to pull pitchers up from their farm systems, and some just haven't worked.
No, but they did get Doug Fister, so
that was a trade.
That was a trade. I mean, yeah, right.
Putting something up, Henry Owens. Henry Owens was going to be the next thing since sliced bread,
and he hasn't been able to cut it. And they brought up Brian Johnson's looked good at times, but I don't think he's a real long-term solution.
No. No one did well at Pawtucket this year. Not a single pitcher stood out at all.
No, I think Velasquez was the best guy that they had, and even he was kind of
mediocre. He had a couple shots up here.
He did.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
So they've had to rely on getting trades.
Getting
or
trades.
free agents.
Yep. Yeah. Thank God Pfister came along.
That's right. That's right.
He's saved their bacon a few times this year. And there are a lot. I think in the disappointments category, I think there are several candidates. I mean, not to get too into depth, but I think Bogarts has been a disappointment this year.
Well,
he was on my list.
Here's an interesting stat. Last year, the Red Sox won the division, and I would say most of their players had career years.
Sure they
at the
did.
time.
Sure they did.
Remember, they had 3 starters in the All-Star team last year.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 Bs started last year.
Sure.
I would say probably Bradley has done as well as he did.
Yeah, he's right in line with what he
didn't have
did.
his 27-game hitting streak. Or
Right,
whatever,
but he's been consistent with what he did
Betts
last year.
is way down,
Mhm.
and Bogarts is really
down.
way down.
Mhm.
And hitting, they're less than you would have expected.
And supposedly they're playing hurt. So if we find out that that's true, then maybe that's a caveat that, okay, that's why he had a bad second half. But I think he's been a disappointment. There are a couple other people.
Leon has done less than he did last year. Hanley has done less than he did last year.
Mhm.
Chris Young is almost.
Chris Young was another one on my list. Do you know I saw Hanley Ramirez has left over 200 men on base this year? Over 200. That's a lot of people left on base. And he doesn't have much position flexibility. He kind of grudgingly plays first, but he wants to be the DH, which, okay, but when you're not hitting, it's not really conducive.
Generally, I think the hitting all around, with very few exceptions, has been somewhat less than expected, and certainly less than last year.
Sure. I agree.
mean, obviously, the big loss is Big Papi.
Sure.
He helped other people around him. They had to pitch to the people before him more,
Sure.
and he was on base with the people. Hanley knocked in 111 runs last year. He doesn't have 50 this year.
Right, and it's because Papi was always on base in front of, and Pedroia was always on base last
because
year.
they had to pitch to Pedroia because
Right.
Papi was up
Right,
next.
yep.
And his loss was not replaced.
Right, there wasn't. No.
They never made the attempt not go out and get Edwin Encarnacion.
Yeah, right, and Moreland's a nice player, but he's not Papi. He's not going to give you the
He
numbers
came in with a
about-
lifetime 230 average.
Right, and he's done a little better than
Little
that.
better.
So,
And he's also the Mr. K of the team.
no, sure he is.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think in just like a general, maybe it's better than you thought. It was surprising. I talked about the guys in front of Kimbrel. The bullpen's actually been the second best bullpen in the league, which is pretty astounding when you think about it. When you think, that they've never really had anyone other than Reed, who they just picked up, who was definitely their 8th inning guy now.
Yeah.
Nobody's really had a set role other than Kimbrel. They tried Barnes in that spot, and he was up and down. They tried Scott. He was up and down. They've tried Hembry in different roles, and I think Hembry's just kind of burned out.
I think Henry and Barnes both.
Yeah, I think they both
They
blew them out.
overused
So
them
they
a
really
lot.
did. They really did.
And it's starting to show.
Yeah, and so I think that's exceeding expectations, given the sort of ragtag crew they've had up there all year. That bullpen's the second best in the AL.
Yeah.
So
They've had, at times Kelly has been terrific.
yep, he's up and down too.
They brought up Workman, and he's
Workman's been very good since they brought him up. I think he's your 7th inning guy right now.
But again, he's had too little exposures.
Sure.
To be
Right.
the guy you're going to go to in the World Series.
Sure. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
it's what's amazed me about this team is they're in first place, and they keep saying they're actually a game or two ahead of last year's pace.
Right. And
How is that happening?
How is that happening? We just talked about all the people who are underachieving. How in the world are they still in first?
Only thing that they're remarkably better is the stolen bases.
Absolutely.
They've stolen over 90 bases.
They're 5th in the majors in stolen bases, and that was before they got Nunez too, who's a fast guy, and they just got Rajay Davis as sort of that Dave Roberts guy too to come in and pinch run too. So
I'd like to have that little dude from the Elias Stats tell me, when was the last time they had 6 double steals in a season?
That's been a long time.
I don't remember any
And maybe
doubles.
never.
6 double steals and well-positioned ones.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
Well, Benintendi and Betts are both going to be 2020 guys.
Yeah.
And that's pretty rare to have 2 guys like that on the same team. And even some of the lesser guys, like even Vasquez has a little bit of speed, actually.
Right,
He's
he does.
stolen a few
He does.
bases. So even sort of the bottom of the order guys, Bradley has decent
Bradley
speed
can
too.
run. Yeah.
So it's sort of all through the lineup, except for maybe a couple of the guys in the middle, Moreland maybe,
and Ramirez.
and Leon. But other than that, they have 6 or 7 guys who are decent runners.
Yeah.
So that's been an
Leon
exceeding
is
too.
a one-man traffic jam.
Oh my God! Well, he's hurt now too, so that's even worse.
Is he?
Yes. He has a hurt knee, so that's why he can't run.
But he's not DL though, right?
No, he's not DL, but he has a bad knee, and it's pretty painful watching him run around the bases. He missed a homer by a foot last week, and he got a single out of it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of our assessment of where the team is. And despite all the complaints we have, they do have a 4.5 game lead, 5.5 game lead in the division.
Right.
So, and I think it's partly that they have a lot of talent, but it's also partly that, as we were saying before, there's a lot of mediocrity in the American League right now. Excuse me.
I think in the major leagues. Really.
In general, yeah. In the American League, there are 3 teams, the Astros, Indians, and Red Sox, that are up here, and everybody else is sort of in the middle down here.
You can say it's mediocrity or parity.
Parity. Yep,
Parity
sure.
maybe too. Maybe it's good that there's so many teams sort of in the middle of the chase that it can give you trouble. Oh, we've had a hell of a time with Baltimore this year.
Every year we have a hell of a time with Baltimore. I'm so
we've
tired
been killing Toronto.
Right, yeah.
So,
I'm so tired of playing Baltimore. Every year they just... And the thing is, they go and beat the Sox, and then they just roll over for the Yankees. The Yankees destroy the Orioles every year. And this has been going on for a while. If you go back to those seasons like 02, 03, 04, 05... the Red Sox bad play against Baltimore is what cost them the division.
That's right.
It really did. Every year the Yankees would go like 15-4 against the Baltimore Orioles, and the Sox would throw up like a 7-12 against them. Like, especially at Fenway, they could never beat Baltimore at Fenway. It's really amazing.
You remember that famous beer and chicken season?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Threw it down the tubes in Baltimore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's sort of they've sort of become their nemesis more than the Yankees actually. It's become sort of a bigger rivalry.
That's true.
But my nightmare scenario is that they get in the playoffs and somehow they get Baltimore in a series. That's a total nightmare scenario for them. They just don't match well against them.
And again, you look at that lineup.
Yeah.
Who do they have?
Chris Davis. Other than Chris Davis, it's like,
Machado has come on strong.
Yeah, right.
But you go down through their lineup or through their pitchers.
Oh, their pitchers are brutal. Their pitching staff is ridiculous. I don't recognize a single guy out of that.
They go out there and they manage to.
They do it. They win 8-7 a whole lot of games.
Well, before we wrap up, a couple other things I thought would be kind of interesting to talk about. We never seem to evaluate the general manager. We never seem to talk about him. We talk about the manager, talk about the players, but the general manager is actually the one that constructs this team. Generally speaking, what kind of a grade would you give him for this year?
Boy, just for this season.
Just this season.
What
he's done this year?
Well, he's had some good and some not so good. I think Nunez was a great pickup. Pfister was just lightning in a bottle. I mean, that was just, let's throw it to the wall and see if it sticks. But I think in general the whole third base scenario kind of falls on the GM. I think he waited too long to do that. I think that he probably could have gotten a little bit of bullpen help earlier in the season.
Well, you got Tyler Thornburg.
You got Thornburg, who was hurt, and Carson Smith, who were both
Tyler Thornburg for Travis Shaw, who was having close to an MVP year.
Yeah, he's single.
And for that we have zero.
We have zero.
Thornburg, another one of the mysterious. What exactly is wrong with him?
No, who knows?
Who knows? He's got some kind of discomfort.
I would give him maybe like a C plus in that area, because I think for every deal that he's made that has worked, you can point to one that did not work as well.
I mean, pickup of sale was extraordinary.
Well, that was
absolutely extraordinary. But I think that's probably more on John Henry to be able to spend that kind of dough.
Sure.
Willing to do that. Yeah. He's definitely got a mixed report card.
Yeah, I think it's, Moreland was a nice pickup. He's kind of done about what you've expected, but he's not a long-term solution at first.
He's also one-year contract.
He's one-year deal, right? He was a one-year.
They don't have a lot of free agents coming up, which is good. And I understand this year's free agent market is not that strong.
It's not at all. I think it's 2 years down the road. They said it's going to be the big paydays, but this coming class is not strong at all. So. Who knows who's going to be out there? I mean,
they do have still a very young team. You go down through the ages of some of these guys, and you got Betts and Benintendi and Bogarts, and
even Bradley's still fairly young.
Bradley's still pretty young. Vasquez is young, and the kid. 20-year-old, they got
Devers is right. That was sort of a break glass in case of emergency, right there when they brought him up.
I mean, again, I picked on him, but Erod is only 24, so who knows? He could still develop, I guess. So it is definitely a young team. and there's years ahead of them. And their payroll, Benintendi's making $560,000 this year.
I'll take it.
Arguably, he's the best player on the team.
Sure. Yeah, and they're very conscious about going over that luxury tax too. I know there were whisperings about them picking somebody up on the waiver wire here and there and stuff like that, and they said absolutely not were they going over the luxury tax. So that kind of quashed any waiver wire deals at the last second. Like the Astros got Verlander, they weren't going to do anything like that at the last minute.
No way, no way. I'm surprised they did that.
I am too. But hey, if when he's on, when Verlander's on, he's tough. And maybe that the pressure's off because Keuchel's their number one pitcher in Houston.
And he's good.
So maybe that the pressure's off. He can slot in and be a great number 2 behind Keuchel. Who knows?
Yeah, he's had stretches where he's awful too.
Right. Yeah. And Houston may have flooding, but now they have Kate Upton coming into town. So maybe Houston will have a reason to celebrate this year.
He's still with her.
He's still with her. Yeah. Good for him.
Why not?
Yeah. So, sorry, tangent there. So anyway, back to the business at hand here.
The other thing I think we've never evaluated is the the television announcers. For so many years, we were entertained by Don Orsillo and Jerry Remy. We just took for granted that we'd be entertained, especially when they were way ahead or way behind in the game.
There was nobody better.
Over. And they would publish the best of Don and Jerry at the end of the season. Jerry falling off the table playing air guitar.
And the guy throwing the pizza.
That the sun came between the moon and the earth.
And the do-rags they got from the Eminem concert. All this great stuff. And there was such a rapport with the two of them that it's been hard to replace, to be honest. Right. It really has been. That they just had such a unique chemistry, those two. And I don't think anybody's quite caught that since then.
And I don't quite understand yet why Orsillo was let go. It had to be something behind the scenes.
I agree.
We didn't get to see whether. I've heard people say, well, he talked about himself. That was what was good. That he was vain. That he had the best. He always had the best clothes. He packed his suitcase 3 days ahead of time. He had his picture taken with Rene Russo.
And that's entertaining. When it's 16-1 in the 7th inning. Okay, don't throw stats at me. Entertain me. I mean, come on. It was sort of like sitting in the bleachers with 2 guys during the game just shooting the breeze. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was so entertaining.
That's the whole point of sports.
Right. It's entertainment.
It's entertainment. It's a business that entertains you, not bores you to tears. Because now we have Dave O'Blabber after the Lord. I've never heard an announcer pour out statistics the way this guy does.
And they're useless statistics. They're not insightful. There's nothing unique about them. And guaranteed, we started to make up a game called Dave O'Brien Bingo. And it's 25 squares. And by the 3rd inning, he's filled in all of the 25 squares. Let's see. There's where he went to college, followed by a college story maybe of his roommate.
Who came from Maine.
Who came from Maine. Oh, yeah. Ryan Flaherty is from Maine, is a square on the bingo. You cannot go a whole game without mentioning Ryan Flaherty's from Maine. Yeah, climbs into the batter's box is another one. Everyone climbs in.
And they pitch from the bump.
Yeah, pitch from the bump. So you can sort of, we have our own, you can sort of, do as you see fit. But listening to him day in and day out, the thing about Jeremy and Don Orsillo was that not only did they entertain, they also knew when to be quiet.
Yes.
They also knew when to just let the game take over instead of it being about them. And O'Brien doesn't do that.
That's why it's called television.
Right.
Because you can see what's going on for yourself.
Right.
And Boston fans are very, very knowledgeable. They don't need to be explained. If you drop a bunt down, it's so they can knock you in from second base better than first base.
We don't need to be told it's 5-1 in the 7th inning. The score's in the corner. You don't need to tell us that. I mean, that's already there.
So, now, if you're showing insight, I love the way Eckersley will tell you what pitch is going to be thrown next.
Yeah.
And then Eckersley has his own slang, not this tired, trite nonsense of being on the bump and climbing into the batter's box.
I think Eckersley's fantastic. And he has his own lingo, like the homer that he hit into the second tank at Yankee Stadium, and hooray for punch-outs and all this other lingo that he has. But you're right. He has insight into the game, and Jerry did too when he was
a player.
He was a player, and then anticipate what's happening. Okay, look at this. This is what's going to happen here. And Eckersley, especially when it comes to pitches, I throw him a slider here, and sure as heck, the guy throws a slider and he waves at it. Yeah. So I think Eckersley's terrific, and he's what they need in the booth. I think is as sad as it is for us to say. I think Jerry's done. I think that's why they had the ceremony for him, and I think his 5th round of cancer treatments, and I think it's just too much for him at this point. I'd be very surprised.
And he's almost 65.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing this for 30 years. I think it's probably, we're really going to miss him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was a little rough when he started, but he was such a character. And his teaming up with first Ned Martin.
Yes, and then Orsillo.
Was just such a great.
And McDonough too. He was with McDonough for a few years too.
I remember one time when Orsillo first started, Orsillo used to talk about how he could have played in minor leagues. He could probably hit 250 in the majors, and he sort of picked on Jerry for only hitting 7 home runs in his career. Jerry sort of snapped back at him, "How many have you hit at this level?"
7 more than you hit.
But it was still cool.
Yeah,
they were entertaining, fun to listen to, regardless of what's going on.
And they were very, like you said about personality, they were both very self-demeaning when it came to, in a humorous way though. Like, Jerry completely owns the fact that he was cheap, he never left the hotel room, and he let people pick on him for that reason, because he owned it. And same thing with Orsillo.
Don't turn the camera on me, that's where the ball is.
Right. And people ragged on Orsillo for the perfect tan and the perfect hair, and he played along with it because he knew that was part of the gig. It was being a personality. So I really miss that, because I don't think O'Brien gives any personality whatsoever into a game.
I don't know if you folks out there know that every sports writer and every announcer is given about a 20-page sheaf of statistics.
Yeah.
About every possible thing you could think of. How many times the batter's hit against his pitcher, what he hits against lefties, night games, when he has a cold, everything. Orsillo would make a couple remarks from that. O'Brien reads the entire opus.
Oh, it's
ad nauseum.
It's brutal.
It just goes on and on and on with these totally useless, uninteresting statistics, just as filler because he doesn't have anything else to say.
I think partly, it comes from, don't forget, he was the radio guy. And radio is different. Radio, you have to fill a lot more time, and he's still in that radio mentality that you have to fill all the dead air, when on television you don't have to do that. You know, silence is golden sometimes when it comes to watching a game. And like you said, Red Sox fans are intelligent. We don't need to be told things. We don't need to have this explained to us. Okay, yep, he bunted here because he wanted to move the guy over. We know that. We were anticipating a bunt. We were screaming you should bunt. We know that.
And one last bit of trashing this fellow. He has a speech defect, if you haven't noticed.
Oh, my Lord.
He talks about the Red Sox.
Yeah.
he slurs his S's all the time. And it sounds like he's had 2 or 3. I've sat next to people who've had 2 or 3, and they sound just like O'Brien. So, if any of you out there are offended by this, well...
Sorry. It's just our opinion.
We belong to the poop group. People offended by offended people.
Yes, exactly. People offended by offended people.
So let's wrap up by giving the trivia answer.
Oh, the trivia answer. This is hard to believe. In 1992, the top guy on the team with 15 homers was Tom Brunansky, who, if you remember, had a couple pretty good years with the Sox, and he made that famous catch that clinched the division in 1990 out in right field. But he was kind of at the end of the line in 1992, and really should not have been relied upon as a power source, but he was, because the team was terrible.
He wasn't reliable, but no one else provided anything. Imagine that 15 home runs led the team. And this year, at this point, 22 is leading the team, and only one guy has that. And here's a scary fact. I couldn't believe when I looked this up. There are 6 teams in the major leagues that do not have a 10-game winner.
That's scary.
6 teams.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Don't have a 10-game winner. the era of individual stardom seems to be pretty slim right now.
Right. Yeah.
But 15 was the top.
50, and the second was actually Mo Vaughn. That was his rookie year, I believe. He was second on the team that year. With 13, which is, boy, there were some bad teams.
When you're despairing about this season, that was twice as bad.
That was really horrible. In fact, I think that was the, wasn't that the year that we saw Cecil Fielder hit the furthest home run we've ever seen a human being hit?
It landed on a train and ended up in Topeka.
No, we were out in the bleachers. July 4th that year, we were out in the bleachers. Cecil Fielder hit a homer off Danny Darwin, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
And we're not talking it went through the light tower. It went through the lights.
The lights.
And it was still at the top of its arc when it went over the wall.
It looked like he was playing in a little kiddie field.
Oh, it was absurd how far he hit that ball. And I'm assuming since it was July 4th, that was a TV 38 game. So if anybody has access to TV 38 vaults, please dig through and see if you can find this home run. It overshadows anything anybody's hit.
It
in the
was
last
before
20
the day
years.
when they could estimate distance.
Oh, it was
But
absolutely
I think
absurd.
it might have kind of competed with Ted Williams' fake home run of the two.
Yeah, which didn't really go that. Oh, it was further than that. It
Yeah.
was absurd how far. So that's our 1992 story. That was our most memorable moment of the season.
Well, that wraps up our
Stretch run.
Stretch run talk. This is filmed, as we said, on Labor Day. We'll be back to talk about how the season wraps up and to predict the playoffs in our next episode. And as always, if you have any comments, feel free to get in touch with Channel 9.
Let us know.
Let us know.
Or on YouTube. Comment on YouTube if you want.
If you'd like to come in and talk with us on the show, we'd be
Absolutely.
glad to have you.
Sure.
So until then, we'll see you and on.
See you at the park.
One more show.
All right, one more.
Thank you for watching another outstanding program provided to you by Lunenburg Public Access. We're here to serve the community. Lunenburg Public Access is always looking for volunteers to help record town events, high school sports, and town meetings. Please consider helping us out today. To contact us, you can call 617-763-3018 or email us at lunenburgaccess@gmail.com. Thank you.